going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. Joining me here for a bench workout, upper body, and we are doing close grip here, so which means it's probably a Friday for me. At this point, I'm like cross adding videos together, not in like my typical manner, because I do 5 days a week, so try to do 2 days at a time so you can see how there's a carryover and not always the same. But yeah, keeping all these paused. And that's been, honestly, what's been the best success for me is having control over the weight, staying healthy, especially on bench, is being able to do like a complete pause, control the weight, get my rhythm, and then press. Obviously, touch and go is fine too if you're not competing, but for me, I don't know, it just slows things down. It allows me to really dial in my form, get things nice and set. You can see there's a little bit of setup time, and I am, I guess, lifting my butt off the bench. I don't know, I have a huge butt, so I'm not sure if it's completely coming off, but yeah, this bench is also a little angled, a little bit weird, so when I'm driving into it, it almost feels like, yeah, I don't know, I guess it's flat. I don't know, we'll see from this angle. So that's super helpful, because sometimes you'll make these changes and not be aware. So I'll probably do some work to kind of correct all that, but you're going to see here, this week, or these days of training were not the greatest. And they're going to fluctuate when you do high volume stuff, when you do strength stuff. You're going to have tapers and carry off of way things move. The only thing you can do is try to be as consistent as possible. So OHP here, things aren't always going to feel amazing. You know, you can get sick, fatigue, not recover as quickly. Things could be off and you just kind of make do with what you have. But the body knows mechanical tension, and you want to make sure you're consistent with it. There's not too much of a fluctuation. A lot of that stuff can cause some CNS fatigue and require even longer amounts of time for you to recover. So try to find a baseline and hover around it. If there's days where, you know, the weight's not moving well, you're not feeling well, you're fatigued, maybe you come into a training session after a long day of work, you know, you can auto-regulate. You know, that's a term a lot of people tend to forget, is you can cut back down in weight and reps and do something that feels comfortable. And that's the whole point of these warm-up sets. It's to gauge and kind of, you know, calibrate yourself to what you can do. Obviously, we want to be doing more than the last time, whether it's weight, reps, whatever. And that's my goal, but sometimes it's not always feasible. So you may have to cut back on a rep or two. But if you do put in the work, all that's going to add to something. You're stimulating stress in the body, and the body will have to heal to compensate for all that. So just keep going, keep going. It's not always going to be a great workout. You can move things around, cut back on stuff or whatever. And as we head in to these colder months, honestly, that's the time that I start to utilize a lot of those skills. It's very hard, at least for me, to recover as I do in like the summer. And I think a lot of it is just, you know, genetics and stuff, and how frequent you are to getting sick, and, you know, where your parents are from and where you've grown up. I have some allergy issues, and in the colder months they tend to kick back up, or whenever there's a change. And then also warming up, you know, you don't always feel so, you walk into a gym on a hot summer day and you're essentially ready to go. Joints, everything feel pretty great. You walk in on a winter day and you might have your winter coat, boots, and you've got a lot of stuff to take off to then change into something else and then be able to do what you need to do. So you just have to standardize all that, and there's always a period where you have to adjust. You know, as you go further into, you know, a lifting training cycle, things get easier. Especially for me, I tend to adapt pretty quickly, and that means I adapt to doing nothing or a lot of stuff. So I'll get really good at doing nothing or a lot of stuff, and then the moment I shift and change, there's this reaction, and then I have to deal with it. So yeah, you can see in this workout here, pretty hesitant on the deadlifts, not as fast as normal. And I'll kind of talk you through some issues and stuff here, but I started to feel, not discomfort, but like I didn't have my all in this workout. So I knew, okay, this will be fun. Let's see what we can do. That 365 probably moved the slowest I've ever pulled 365 in my life. 405 here, a little bit better, but yeah, starting to feel the fatigue here. And realizing, okay, maybe today's not the best day to do whatever. So I think I just decided instead of reps, I was going to hit some sort of like heavyish single. I really wanted to get back to pulling 500 plus multiple times a week, and rough luck out 495. And to be honest, I keep it real here. Not my best set. These are probably the worst deadlifts that I've ever done. Lockout is just sketchy as all hell, and I definitely hitched and grinded it out. So yeah, and that's another reason why I decided to strip the belt and just go beltless. But then there's a period where you have to adjust, and then this is probably the worst set of a rep of deadlift I've ever done in a while. Just couldn't even finish it, called it there, and just kind of moved on. So it is what it is. Took my L, and it is super frustrating. I'm somebody who likes to keep making progress, and again, you're not moving backwards if you're not, unless you're injured or unless you're never able to hit a weight you've never hit before, if you're not recovering. And that's not the issue here, because I did pick up extra reps and stuff on other movements that I was doing. And what you have to understand is that when you're lifting and you progressively overload with accessories and these heavier compound movements, there's going to be some taper off. It's never going to be, okay, this is going up in weight, so this must go up in weight too. It doesn't ever work that way. You have to be, realize your body's got to adapt, and you can only do so much unless you're on performance enhancing stuff or you're so dialed in with your nutrition and everything that you're it's just insane. So for me, I am taking my victories where I can. The intention is always to do more, to push myself, and to try to add weight. I like the challenge. I like having to climb that hill and get better and try to figure issues out. And as I've gotten older, just dealing with injuries or fatigue is something that's a skill to have. And I think a lot of people, you have to train for that. You have to learn how to work around it, figure out what works for you. And that's the whole point of me documenting all this stuff, is to kind of see the changes and stuff I make to help address and adapt. And, today was not my greatest day, my greatest lifting session. So to me, it's all about doing what I can, getting out, go to recover, come back the next time and try to push a little bit more, or make up for it, like I said, on another lift. Maybe get an extra rep or two or a little bit heavier weight on an accessory, and then just kind of go from there. But as long as something is changing and you're causing growth, your body is going to have to adapt. Obviously, don't get injured, but do things that put yourself in a better position, right? If you acclimate yourself to a weight this week, it will likely be easier next week, so you can come back and hit more reps, or you can do a little bit more. Sometimes I'll experiment and kind of see what I want to do. And that's the benefit of understanding your body, how you recover, and just knowing yourself. It's knowing when to pull back, when to push forward. And again, and not some world champion lifter or whatever, just somebody who likes what I do. And I think when I switched over programs from, JFit, JFit, whatever it's called, to Boost Camp, I think I'm on like 20 consistent weeks of lifting, right? So it's 20 weeks, 5 days a week. That's 100 workouts I've done so far. And I've got, 10 years of lifting, 10 years of lifting data on JFit still. So I've never stopped. I've just kept going. And like, that's how you build habits. That's how you get stronger, is you just have to commit to it. Commit to the bit, push through, recover, do whatever you need to do to get it strong, and just kind of go from there. It's all about any other skill, consistency, right? You want to work on your jump shot, your golf swing, or if you're like me, and fishing and stuff like that, your accuracy, you have to put in the hours, you have to put in the reps to do it. And that's just how we learn. Like, that's what we do as human beings, is we adapt to our environment. And the more you're exposed to something, the better you are at adapting. So you have to present it, and it's on you to be the main driver and all that to get to the position you need to be in order to make that progress there. And that's essentially what I've done in the training gym. Is I'll get excited about new different exercises, try them out, start low, then work my way up. There was that new leg extension, the unilateral one that I like to do. I started really low with that because it felt weird, adapted, slowly added weight over time. I'm at a decent amount on it, so we can just keep going forward. And I've always been super, super duper happy to be able to do all that and, move stuff around, figure out what I like and what I don't like, and make judgment calls on stuff. Do I want to add in more work? Do I want to take stuff away? Calves are a big weak point for me, so I've been doubling up on calf sets, and it sucks, and I get cramps and stuff, and I just in the long term for me, that's something that I want to improve on. So I just have to do the work, put the time and effort in, and grind it out. You know, it's not gonna always be easy going forward. So you ultimately just have to figure out, you know, if it's something you enjoy. If you don't enjoy something, you're not gonna do it. You'll find excuses to get away from it, or altogether just drop it all. And what's the point? Why put the time and effort if you're not gonna get a return on it? But anyway, that's the workout. That's the rant. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff. And you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.